Wholeness family, it's always great to connect. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a moment. It's definitely a great time to be here, and we're going to definitely get deep into this today, and we're just going to let it breathe for a moment since we did come on live at the wrong link, but that has been reset, so we should be at the proper link. So we're ready to go in about 3 minutes. Paulo Santos, Sage, is in order. Wholeness. All right, let's get lifted.
Finally, we get to, at a certain point, this 8th and 9th dimensional being.
Well, then why can't we see it?
Our purpose, to create a star within a star.
Well, then why can't we see it?
We have here nitric acid, glycerine, and a special mixture of my own.
You shouldn't give up in frustration. Your body has the DNA for it.
Well, then why can't we see it?
All right. Y'all wow for that. Y'all wow. All right. So it is time once again. We are here in the space and it is awesome to be here. We just got out of yoga. So of course we're lifted. We've been bringing that energy in. It's been a special time on earth for us all to connect. We're feeling the vibes and we're knowing that for sure it's happening in humanity. So, but on the outskirts of existence, there are for sure some zombies, but inside, internally, everything is coming to full wholeness as it's always been. So today we're here, we're continuing this segment. And this segment is actually related to, let me take these off. This segment is actually related to, as you know, spiritual technology. It is my opportunity to come into the space and share the knowledge that I have about elements that are able to not only regenerate, but recharge the consciousness. And if you've noticed, for 10 years, I've been quite regenerated. And I will say, though, that I've had to put some maintenance in on this being. Nobody is exempt from it. You must scrape the barnacles off the boat. Now, last week, when we got in here, or I got to watch these turns. The last time we got together, okay, because you notice how the, last week, my new week, like what's so weak about you? Or what's the other one? The days. These days are going by. I'm dazed, And so these time frames have this connotation around it that, you get weaker and smaller and less. And we reverse that energy. We reverse that force. So we're here and we're present. We're in this moment. But the last time that we got together, we talked about the matrix. Now, I'm launching right into this today because for whatever reason, everything is scheduled today. So I got tons of stuff to do, but it will not at all shade the quality of what I do. So I have been up for quite a bit, thinking about this, projecting this into the future. And now I'm sitting in the present. And so I'm here to do my best. Now, last time we got together, we talked about the matrix, okay? Let me make sure that we come in here clearly. Yep. So we talked about the matrix, right? And we talked about how that basically existence is points where light meet. As we talk about in the top right corner of this diagram, we see that inside the torus, we have these horizontal, if you may, and vertical lines that cross. And every time there's a cross, life is created because this same crossing is the same as a pole going into the hole. It's the same thing as how you got here. It's the same thing that the geometry shows us. How you bring in life is you bring in that straight line and then you bring in that curve. And so inside of that, since we are aware of that, we now are going to go deep into it, which is actually just deep into ourselves because we're only looking at other emulations of ourselves. And we're going to go deep into ourselves and we're actually going to see why the energy is a bit fuddled or muddled inside the body. And there are things that can assist us with aligning it. But I feel like that in our minds, we need to be convinced first. Like we have to be able to tell ourselves, okay, I know this works and I know why it works. Actually, I participated in a big conversation. It was about placebo, non-placebo, and kind of how, a person can heal themselves without any medicines or anything, just off their mind, or somebody can take a pill that's not really for what it is supposed to be for, but find themselves cured because they thought that the pill was going to work. And the conclusion was made for sure that, of course, we manifest things in our consciousness when we focus on it for a prolonged period, and then it starts to manifest into this space. What we're talking about today is actually those lines of conduction. We talk about the consciousness as a projector. So all you're seeing is being projected from your consciousness. You are powering this projector, and it is projecting electromagnetics and light. And it's become so solid, meaning you knowing how to do it. That's what the solidness is, that you know how to do this so well, you don't doubt it. Because in the event that you begin to doubt the space that you're in, you may fall through the floor. Some have experienced that situation where things just start to particleize and disappear as you become more and more in belief that you're everywhere and less in belief that you're just here, right? So the consciousness, it can be, it can be modulated. And something came across, and I'm actually going to, since I remember this, I'm going to bring this up right now. I talked about how every main industry, if you may, of current is actually getting a massive stimulus right now. So obviously we know the charts are all the way up. Like I think Big B hit 63,000, right? So there's a lot going on in the financial markets. Coinbase even, sprinkle a little bit on those that are still day trading and stuff like that to see if they want to ride that IPO like they could have rode Tesla. And so that's happening in those energetic fields. But we know that that's the currency even of the planet, because we've all agreed that this stuff somehow has value, or a lot of us have, the majority have, that it has value, and we can use it as a intermediate for time. Okay, money is an intermediate for time now. So because we've agreed on that it does have some energetic potential to it. But now what we're really highlighting more than anything is that, so if the financial industries, which are all plagiarizations of the spiritual world, technology is plagiarization of the spiritual world. If all these areas are getting an upgrade, of course it would have came to the spiritual world probably first, and we would eventually see it on the physical plane at some point. What was it? And I will say for sure, over the last, I would say at least 7 to 8 years in a concentrated dose, we've seen more people go on journeys, whether that's ayahuasca, DMT, Mike Tyson, the Toad, all this kind of stuff. So all these people are going on these journeys. And this is the same thing. I want you to understand. This is the same thing as now basically people get a chance to take a trip into something or gain enough energy to have a journey that they normally couldn't have. I want to make it very clear about this whole thing about enhancements and upgrades to consciousness. Generally, the standard person that takes DMT, not all of them, because anybody who can just do it anyway or knows how to do it with breathing doesn't use DMT. There's no reason in using it. But for people who couldn't do it, and I'm talking about seeing with the third eye and seeing that, you're a totality and all the kind of stuff, right? Turning on enough energetic potential to power your vehicle for one moment to take a late night flight in your raggedy rocket ship and then finally see it all. And then blow out all your transistors in the process as you descend back down to earth, because everyone comes back or forward. It depends on, where you went. But it's just the awareness that once and for all, we should be in the know about energetic potential moving around. And every time we see energetic potential move up in one place, that means that it's also moving up in another place. We just have to use the blueprint of existence, which we've been so polite to actually give over the last 10 years. The blueprint of existence in order to make those connections. And it's very difficult to make those connections if you're judging, if you're hating, if you're not just observing and watching patterns until you can come to a truthful conclusion based on the experiences that you have, which is true wisdom, right? Not just knowledge, not just knowing all the books, knowing how to spit it, copying off of other people and how they say it, and then coming back and regurgitating it. We're talking about seeing what it actually does, living it, and actually taking it serious. I will say for the record that, man, I saw quite a few people shook when this whole pandemic thing started. Like, man, they were just like, yo, where am I going to go? What should I do? I'm going to get with my mom. Me and my mom getting together. Man, my family, we all here in the house together, right? And so everybody was scared, because, they didn't know what was going to happen. And they're unsure versus the depth. That's the field we start with. Everything is unsure. You don't know what's going to happen. It's a blank piece of paper. You write on it. So let's just speak very candidly about most folks are now back into that regular mood again. Even though the jobs are gone, masks are on the face, all this stuff is happening. Jabbing folks, you got this creepo running around trying to dim the sun, formulating RNA stuff, shooting folks with it. All this stuff is happening. But a person's like, okay, it's good. We good. Okay, we good. Because your consciousness will basically normalize through frequencies. But are we good? I'm not trusting these people. I trust myself, right? And also, I'm not leaving it up to somebody else or something else to give me the energetic stimulus to project beyond this space. The largest mind is always going to win. Whoever has the biggest projection, we're going to be inside of it. And I'm always telling you every time I can get on here that, listen, if you could just control your dream, you wouldn't be tripping on what's going on in the physical world. You wouldn't be sweating folks and trying to get attention and all that kind of stuff if you could just control your dream. Because every night that you could control your dream, if you feel like it, even though this sensation goes away rather fast because it also is very egotistic, you can boot up an entire world More importantly, where you're at in that world, a mansion, if you want to be in a mansion, boom, tank, load us up. Swimming pool, jacuzzi, all these virtual girls that you're creating through your electromagnetics, right? And then, some sacred father, mother walk out a room, touch you on the forehead, give you all of the essence and energy for 60 million years, and you feel it coursing through your body. Somebody didn't pass you a hit of element 93, and you hit that. Ooh, you even feel that too. And then look, you hit the alarm, you wake up. We're into this. The constant, the stable, right? This is the constant. This is the stable. This is the frequency where we all land. It's necessary. It's like when you're flying, since this is an energetic field, they love to say, all is energy. But yeah, people run out of certain types of energy. There's different types of energies. So when folks need to land, they bird ass down, a perch as we call it, this is the constant. And as we talked about, our mother gives us this constant at 7.83 hertz, oscillating out to almost generally 12 and 13 in that range. And what that allows is that it doesn't feel like a tremendous earthquake eradicating our identity of anything. Meaning that if we go into higher frequencies, it's like a huge vibratory earthquake that's going through the body, lots of power and energy, and ID seems to be holding everything back. I'm James Bomar, and I have a daughter, and I have a conscious communicator. I do a website, and that's just all going down the river. As you're there, like, okay, I think I've killed myself. Okay, I'm dead. Oh shit, this is after death. After death exists. Oh, that may be your 20th or 30th time going. I've been 100 and something. Enough to a point to sit back in this space and be like, okay, cool, all is good. It doesn't even matter, really. I'm going to be tightened up out of here. It's common sense. Like, nobody stays here beyond their orbit time. So why am I rushing it? I might as well leave a streak in the sky right now, utilize the gift that I've been given of this intelligence, and no matter if 9 billion people are actually doing something totally off from my perspective, I'm going to stay on. I'm going to keep honoring, and I'm going to keep rejuvenating myself with what I still know my ancestors did. I know they did it because I'm doing it. And you can do it too if you're not already. So we're going to jump right into this because I look for a really, really good way to explain things. But I'm going to need to do a sound test on this other mic because I'm going to be moving around. So let's see how this other mic works. The sound's going to be different. This is just a little bitty wireless lavalier. So let's see. Thing 1, 2, 3. Okay. So what I'm going to need is I'm going to need somebody in the chat to let me know that, yeah, you coming through. I can hear you. It's loud enough because I'm about to move out of this station because I cannot do everything I need to do today from here. So I'm about to untether in 10, 9, 8. This is, again, somebody in the chat box saying, yes, untether. 6, 5, 4. Somebody says the volume up. Okay, pump the volume up. Pump up the volume. All right, here we go. Let's see. I thought I saw a red lining, but we'll pump it up a little bit. Let me check it in here in the master. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, there it is. Let me pump that up. All right, so there we go. There goes some more decibels. Somebody says not as clear, but I can hear you. I think you just want some more amplification. Let me see. Somebody say it's better. All right, we're going to pump this thing all the way up. There's a pretty high headroom on this, so I just didn't want to be peaking my audio. Let me go over here. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2. Oh, shoot, we do got a little room in there. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that looks like the peak. All right, and that's still the peak. Oh, testing, and that's still on the peak. All right, so we're about right there. All right, somebody says it's rusty. Somebody says, yeah, you're going to hear a little echo. I'm going to turn this off in a minute. I just got to hear everybody while I'm doing my sound test. Let me go ahead and cut my audios down. All right, some say it's a little echo. It's muffled, bruh. What's good? It's better. Let me put this thing closer to the mouth. I just got to be on the move today, so we're going to test this out. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Someone says turn it up, cut the low end. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Except for there is no low end on that side. 1 second. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Somebody says good enough. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Nah, we got to have good audio. It ain't to suffice because I don't plan on doing this again. You know, I got something else to move on to. Some are saying it's an echo. We should have got rid of that echo right now. So if that echo is still there, somebody just say echo, and I'm going to go ahead and switch over to one more mic. Okay, so Sean says that'll work, fam. Much better. This proves that y'all listening. Somebody say rusty. All right, well, look, we're going to deal with it today. And I guess what I'll do is I'll open up this mic also, so just in case it catches any extra, that'd be great.
Yeah,
The echo ain't gonna happen. We can't do that, though. I think it's feedback. It's feeding back into the system. Give me 1 second. All right, so we're testing the feedback. Okay, let's do this. I think this feedback's coming from here. Okay, so I'm going to try this one more time, and I just need to know if there is some feedback now. I did kill out a second sound file. Okay, everybody's saying, oh, good, we good. We good. Perfect. No feedback. Okay, that's good. That's good. All right, let's go. All right, let's go. Let's see, now it's got feedback. Let's close this off. All right, we're going to keep trying this. We're not in a rush here. Like, fools rush in. I closed out another mic to see if we're getting feedback. Somebody's saying big echo. There's feedback. Okay, 1 second. Whatever I just did messed it up again. Let me call some folks on the line real quick and it should be working. I just used this morning. That's how the technology works. This is the crummy technology. We're gonna be talking about the great technology here in a moment, but this one ain't it. Let me push this live. Okay, so somebody is saying it's good now, we're good. So I'm going to let that roll. All right, so everybody's saying we good, so I'm assuming that we're good. Okay. Exactly. I know y'all want to take off, but remember, we don't need but one trip. Okay, so everybody's saying good, so we're going to roll with that. Let me get my... All right. All right, let's take off. We need a takeoff sound effect. Okay, so how we're doing this today is, the first thing is that actually I did have a really amazing explanation that was simple about Okay, clearly that mic does not want to act right. So 1 second, let me see why we lost sound. Okay, I'm seeing somebody say that we lost sound for a moment. So let me switch this out because yeah, this is obviously where our issue is. So give me a minute. So I say there's always at least 15 minutes of this bad tech. So give me 1 second. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Ah, okay. I know why it did that. All right, let's do this. Let's go to Rodecaster. Audio. Scarlet. Boom. Testing, 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 testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna pull this down because now it's gonna be super loud, and I have to make the main audio. Let me go ahead and turn on the stereo audio. Are you serious? Testing. 1, 2, 3. Let me push the stereo audio. There we go. Now the double audio will stop because I cut off the other thing. And so now this should be perfect. Like this audio should be perfect. So we're going to try this one more time. This should be perfect audio. We trying this one more time. Let me know. Okay, so yeah, this should be perfect. Okay, yeah. I saw somebody say, too much equipment. You're damn right, too much equipment. That's why they need to make one thing. Unless you want to have like 30 people back here doing it all, because that's what you see behind the scenes at the spot where they got the big budget. All right, so let's do this. Let's go back to our Sony here. And what we were explaining is that this fiber optic cable, which many of y'all youngsters may have never seen before, was actually the highest quality cable. And it generally has light running through it, and you would see it as a red light. Okay? So now, the example that I wanted to give is that the reason why they phased out these cables was the issue is that most people have a lot of cables behind their electronics, and they oftentimes want to push their electronics back as close to the wall as possible. And then when they do that, they crimp this cable, and when this cable is crimped, the light is not able to flow through the cable, and the light is carrying all of the information. Okay, so this is a simple experiment about how light carries information. It carries not only music, it can also carry audio, it can carry data packages, right? And so the clarity of this audio was really high, but the flaw in the technology was that the line could become crimped, and when the line was become crimped, of course, it would block the signal, and then thus you wouldn't get any sound. And that, because this cable is also old, the tip broke off. There's very few of these even hanging around the house anymore. I used to run a system that was only fiber optic. Also, another thing about fiber optic is broadband, right? So most of the time, the internet that you're using right now is broadband technology. And this broadband technology, let me get my other camera on here real quick. So this broadband technology, let me see, audio, boom, video. Let me just slide this in here real quick. second, everyone. Also, the benefit of actually me demoing out this setup, even though it's on your time and my time, is that it actually allows me to explain quite a few more things that I've been meaning to get to. And it's just that you do need to have a little bit more going on in the studio to be able to convey what you're trying to convey. And so I actually got in here over the last few days, and I really thought out how I can begin to create more of an experience that will allow me to teach. Because, you know, to be quite honest, the subject matter is a bit dense when it comes to, you know, how complicated some of this stuff could be. So I try to make it as simple as possible. And then I also attempt to put it in a way where others can learn. That way it's not just looking like, okay, I'm just over here, I'm enjoying life and you can't, or you got to buy my course, or, you know, here's something that I have that you don't. It's just giving you the complete breakdown of what's going on in this experience and the tools that can be utilized here. And how this stuff really works, so that way you get an opportunity to understand exactly how your consciousness works. This is the way that I teach. This is the way that I want to do it. It's been 11 years, so I personally have to myself keep regenerating in this experience. Like, I can't stand to do the same thing over and over again and be in holding patterns. It's just never really been me in my life. And so I like to keep expanding. And then also, one of the dangers of even becoming some type of personality, or some people say celebrity, whatever it is, YouTube celebrity, is that your life can become consumed by that. So you can find like 10 years later, you're still doing the same thing, but you haven't grown. The benefit of working with consciousness is that if you're applying it to yourself, you're definitely getting some quantum growth. But I see in all of this that we have to always keep stepping it up. Like, there's never like, oh, it's, you know, it's okay there. You know, some people are cool like that. You know, number 9s are cool like that. But number 4s in my world, they got to keep that newness happening because it makes us feel alive. So here's some new stuff. So as I was explaining, this fiber optic is carrying light. And because the cable may age or it may get crimped, what often happens is the light stops transmitting. Now, light reinforces light. So if we started firing more light down this cable, there's the potential for that to actually give more of the energetic potential to reestablish the connection. So today, what we're only going to be talking about is really light waves, or the spectrum of light and how it manifests. And that way we can get to the awareness of objects that allow us to be able to tap into certain things that run through our body. So that way we don't confuse that it's actually the device. We just realize what's been put in the device and why it actually works with the body. So hopefully that is very clear. So let me go ahead and go over here to the board, and I guess I'll hit that as A2. Let's see. Oh, take the AI off. And bam, all right, that thing is working. And let me just go ahead and put this on big screen. So we talked about this language of light. And we talked about how we're also made of the words. You know, in the beginning was the word, and the word did not come back void. The word actually creates a vibration. The void is the torus. And it did not come back void, meaning it manifested inside of the torus, which creates physical life, okay? So as we see that light and light are very synonymous to each other. That light, it travels, and as that light's traveling, whether it's as a constant or a wave. Actually, I'm going to need to write big here. Excuse me. I realize that, the only way we're going to be able to do this is to write big. So whether it's a constant or whether it's a wave, it's moving, okay? So the fiber optic example lets us see that, hey, if something begins to obstruct this wave, it will hit this. Sometimes it'll pass through, but it will lose some of its resonance and some of its strength as it as it's going through this process of obstruction. So we talked about mental obstruction. Judgment is mental obstruction. But we also have thousands of frequencies and wavelengths. I mean, it's not even thousands, it's a countless amount of frequencies and wavelengths moving around us at all times. And some know that some of those waves are harmless and some of those waves are actually beneficial for our bodies. And so what we're talking about today is technologies that have been formulated to create the waves that are beneficial for the body. Because if I just say, well, magnetics will help you, I was laid up 4 or 5 days with my whole body demagnetized, playing around with the wrong pole of a very strong magnet. So it's not just magnetic energy, it's actually how magnetic energy is being conducted and how magnetic energy is being guided. 1 second. A windscreen on this. Okay. So that's funny because so the blockage then, what that's actually referred to is as noise. Okay? Noise. It's just like even in the audio lines, which I was playing around with all day today, sometimes if you're silent, you hear this noise and it's like, okay, we got to get rid of that. It's obstructing the actual clear signal. So that clear signal through your light body that gives it the energetics, you have to do the maintenance of making sure that all of those ventricles are clear. Because what happens is, especially in time seems to be what allows light to get lost. It's not really distance. Because distance, you could be anywhere in the thought. But it's time that actually stretches out something in front of light that allows light to stretch. And when light starts stretching, it could get obstructed as it goes through different fields. And because we're in all of those fields all the time, we are that. We have to take a moment and really look into ourselves and say, okay, well, how does this light body really work? Because what happens is when this new concept of light body actually seems to refer to a body that you're not in. Like it's like, oh, the next body that you go up into, that's the light body. No, this body is also made of light. It shines. Like anytime you see it, even the skin, there's a shining coming off of it. It has a reflective thing going on. If you take a look at your body and notice how light just bounces off of it and shines on it. Right? So this is also a light body, and this light body has a certain level of maintenance that it has to have. Okay? And that maintenance is to allow these obstructions to be removed. So that way, in that particular quadrant or that sector or that spectrum, that light can move through that freely. Okay? So the next thing here is that we're going to start isolating these frequencies or these energies. And we're going to explain how they work. Hopefully this thing doesn't come tumbling off. We're going to explain how they work in the body, and then we're going to show the technology that actually does it, creates it, makes it. Let me do this real quick. And also, now that I figured out my other issue with this microphone, I'm going to go ahead and put back on the lavalier because it's impossible for me not to have both of my hands free. So I realized that the audio cut off because when we switched the channels, we switched to an area where it wasn't on, and that was why it terminated the sound. So we'll put this back on. All of life for me has been perseverance. Every time I try something first, it always either doesn't work, it quirks, it works differently for other people than it does for me. And I found in life that you just have to be resilient. And people who don't have patience, they're not really resilient. So that's why the first thing that the meditations and all that is trying to teach you is patience. Somebody's over here trying to mark it into the chat. Patience, Iago. Okay. All right. So for those that are actually in the chat, if you can give a okay, everything is broadcasting clearly, we'll go ahead and keep going. I did change my mic out because I cannot deal with that other mic. And I'm going to bump up the audio just a little bit more, and then we're going to go ahead and get this thing going again. Okay, great, great, great. All right, so we're going to keep going with it. Turn this down a little bit. Okay. So the first one is PEMF. Pulse electromagnetic frequency. Okay? And pulse electromagnetic frequency is really a ground. Now, as we talked about before, because it's electromagnetic, this is how you can demystify these terms, because a lot of times you can hear these terms and you're like, man, you know, okay, pulse electromagnetics, that sounds like a very complicated thing. But actually all it's saying is the pulsing, right? You're familiar with pulsing of electromagnetics, and you know that the whole thing is electromagnetics, like it's electromagnetic existence. But this is a field. So it's actually creating a field of electromagnetics that's pulsing, okay? So it's important then to know about that, okay, well, what electromagnetic field? Because not all electromagnetic fields are the same. This is where the science, if you may, comes into this, the precision, the alchemy. All electromagnetic fields aren't the same. So when we're saying PEMF, we're still not saying what we're pulsing and what frequency are we pulsing. So there has to be another integer to this. So any technology that's created using PEMF should also have, generally by default, a setting for 7.83 hertz. This is because obviously your cells, or not so obviously, excuse me, but this is because your cells in your body have a charge to them. And that charge is your pH balance. So how much pH you have is also indicating the amount of charge inside of your cells. Right? So that should be very clear. So when you have a low pH, there's a low charge. When you have a high pH, which they call high alkaline, this means you have a higher charge. However, what we talk about is that it's not necessarily the goal all the time just to have this super high alkaline, right? So it's like a high alkaline is 9, okay? So people would think, well, shoot, okay, if disease and things can't grow inside of high pH, and basically high pH is probably a high vibration, I'm going to go and boost my pH up. But what you'll notice is that there's other things also that you need that are very constructive for you, like your good bacteria, et cetera, that cannot live in a pH 9 body. It actually, it's too alkaline. There's a such thing as too alkaline. Now you'll notice that if you get a hold of any alkaline or you get a hold of any electrolyte, you'll notice that it always tastes a little lemony. And if you ever had the opportunity to have, you know, a little bit of messing around with a battery, like a car battery, and you happen to put your hand in your mouth on an accident, you'll taste that the solution inside of a battery is also very lemony. And that's because a battery is also using electrolytes to create the charge. So the body actually works the same way. So the cells are what's regulating this pH level. Now, the body naturally can charge itself. It does that from all of these other spectrums of light that are coming into it. It's not just doing it. There's spectrums of light that are actually charging the body. One of them is far infrared, which we're going to talk about here in a moment.
But since when that light's coming in and is charging the body, that means that the body technically is like a solar panel. It can really charge itself. It doesn't necessarily need to take in energetic potential, like drinking battery juice or drinking electrolytes. The only thing it needs is something very, very important, and that's ground. We learn that in power, that you can have tons of voltage coming out of that positive side, as we call it. But if it's not grounded, you cannot really utilize that voltage. And if it's not grounded very well and there's too much voltage coming through, you have a meltdown in the system. So this is also what it would be like to go into a high vibratory frequency in your consciousness and then have no ground. This is why it's always talked about that you should work on your ground first. Ground is a real thing. You know, they even talk about, of course, grounding. You take off your shoes, you know, you step in the grass, because earth has a natural ground to it. But there's a way also for you to begin to root into your ground. It's like a visualization that creates an energetic response. And energetically, your energy moves deeper into the ground and it grounds itself. So that way, when you turn on that positive side of the energy, that you have the ability to get the amplitude. Okay, because when a lot of power comes through, if there's a weak link or a broken link, it's going to pop, static, trip, catch on fire. That's what's going to happen. There were even times from what I've heard from OGs in the game, like Viktoras Kovinskis, the survival guide to the 21st century, guys that are like 70, 80 years old right now, still moving around, where they were talking about back in the days of Mount Shasta, when they were doing these Kundalini activations with the Kundalini breathing, they even have women that their hair was catching on fire. And this was because they had bringing the energy all the way up, and they finally got it here to find that this chakra was still not functioning as well as it needed to be. And when the energy got there, it was too much. It's an actual real energetic potential. See, and that's the difference, of course, between the front door and the back door, because the back door is very similar to a dream, if you may. We call using substances a back door. You can go on this wild journey with some diamond tree, which is DMT or something like the frog or whatever, and you can feel all this energy going through your body. But generally, if somebody else touches you, if you're in that same style of body that you took off with, they can't feel anything. They can be looking right at you, and you could be going through this mind-bending experience, and they would never be able to tell what's going on with you, because there's no energetic potential coming off of you that they can actually feel. Versus with the front door, which is breathing and natural ways of ascending into a higher vibratory field, man, this stuff can even cause small earthquakes. Stuff shakes. People feel stuff. People can get blown across the room. I think that was that Drunvalo's story about his first initiation and running into a meditation master and then being told to sit with the guy. And then he went and sat with him. The guy didn't say anything to Drunvalo for 2 or 3 days. And then finally, Drunvalo was like, okay, this is all bullshit. He gets up to leave, and then something's in his mind like, well, at least tap him a little bit and tell him, just get something out of this. And he taps him, and it blows him across the room damn near with electrical jolt, right? You've seen Dynamo Jack, right? So you know that there's a powerful force that comes from this center, the Dantane, and it creates an electrical field in the body. And that field is able to, you can even grab someone else's field, right? Like there's a way to grab the net or field around a person's body and tug them physically with this net. You see what I mean? And so this, of course, has already led to quite a few reasons why spirituality is the way that it is right now. Like if you look at the old Oriental setting, many beings had power. If you look at this new setting, pretty much people are powerless. And what's happened, or powerless in the sense that the knowledge of how that they even have power and how to use the power has been removed. That's how you make a being powerless. It's not necessarily they need to take the power away from you. They just need to take the belief that you have power away from you, because then it's just turned off from there. Your consciousness is the activator of this power and this energy. And the reason why I like these topics is because it breaks it down a bit more and it explains to us really how all this stuff works. So we don't have to think it's all airy-fairy. We don't have to think that it's all like we just need to believe in it. We actually have already discovered the integers of how it functions, okay? So PEMF technology then, as you've been made aware of, is actually what is allowing the charge, or the ground, excuse me, to actually accompany within the cells, or be accompanied within the cells, and then the cells charge themselves from there. That's why PEMF energy is very instrumental at charging the body as a human charger, okay? The next thing is crystals, okay? Now, for the record, not all crystals are created equal. In the world of division, crystals have a variety of spectrums of light, right? So different crystals do different things. I definitely remember the day of taking any crystal that I could find and throwing them all over the body, not really even being mindful of the color pattern or anything, and just seeing where we go. And there was a lot of wild experiences. But when you get into the art, let's say, of working with these gems, you understand that the chemical that is their makeup, right? Like, because there's a chemical, or what you're calling the chemical compound. Right here, of course, is the 4 elements, as I brought up before, that this chart is basically, in the ancient times, they just called this the 4 elements. Now we've broken it down into layman's terms, and now we've shown you all of them now. And these are the chemical compounds that are actually utilized in order to make these crystals, right? Through different age, time, pressure, heat, cold, all sorts of agents acting on it. Now, obviously, the big benefit of crystals in that sense would be that they're capable of storing specific energy patterns. So you could get an energy pattern from 2,000 years ago and bring it back into this time if you can kind of boot up the crystal, right? And what all this leads to after a while is like, okay, so what do I do with that? And why would I do that? And what does it look like? Like, even with the understanding of metamaterials and being able to cause an interface between, or antenna interface between a human body and a pattern and a design. But then it still needs a programmer. Like, what are we going to do with it? And this is kind of where we're going to end the conversation today, because I felt it important to bring up at some point that a lot of times we're on this search, but at the end of the day, you need to kind of know where you're going. It's like sometimes we're on this journey, but we need to kind of plan out the trip a little bit. That way we can actually guide the direction of what we seek. And that's what goal setting is. Like, generally, like, there are people who just drift and travel the world, but generally they at least say what direction they want to go in. Oh, I'm going south. I'm going to hit west. Some people say, well, I'm going to Africa. And they start heading in that direction. So there's always like some type of destination. And in consciousness, it is good at times to have a destination of what you expect to come from this energetic potential, because it can do anything. Now your level is just first believing that it can, right? And getting into that, and then knowing that it can. And then from there, so can what? I'm in the can what phase. I'm not just into, ooh, that's how it works. Let me go get it. I'm more like, okay, once I have it, since I know I can get it, what would I do with it? Where am I going? So there's a tendency for us also to look to our ailments, which is a good idea. Look to things that are actually already disturbed within your body, because this is fixing stuff before you take off on your journey. How many people will go on a journey with a broken leg already? How many people would go on a journey knowing you can regain sight blind? What sense does that make? And how would you really process the journey? And would you even make it back from the journey? So never in life, so never in afterlife, should we take journeys that we really are not prepared for. Preparation is maturity. Preparation is wisdom. All our ancestors have done is laid out a bunch of preparation, and you can tap into it at any point. You're experiencing it now, but that preparation is not the journey. Our ancestors have done a great deal of giving us all the instruments and all the tools that we need to take the journey and to navigate while we're on the journey. but we have to take the journey. They cannot take the journey for us. Okay? So this is like now taking the journey serious. What do I need to have in my pack? Now, for me, it's carrying these energies. PEMF is one of them, pulse electromagnetic field. We could do that with our body. Once we stabilize the system perfectly, there are certain things that will assist you in doing that. But what is it for? To make sure that the cells have the ground that they need to charge the cell to the proper pH so we can function in a balanced capacity. Now, there are higher vibrations that you can't stay like that anyway. You can ride into that space, and then you could come back into this space, and generally you sometimes need to recharge. Sometimes you feel a little tired. That's why we're saying about cell food. Cell food will restore pretty much the energetic field after a long meditation or a long fast. You know, anything that has been exhausting where just the electrolytes of the body have run down. So now we have crystals. And what crystals are doing, especially in application to the technologies that we're talking about, because crystals are in themselves a perfect conductor. They're like filters. They allow these specific energies that we're working with, like the far infrared and the pulse magnetics, they allow that to actually be configured in a certain way, because that's why crystal geometry is so important. Right? So there's 7 different types of crystals. We've talked about that. They have 7 very specific, like orthorhombic, et cetera, specific kind of geometric fields around them. And that geometric field meshes perfectly in with the spectrum of life. Right? So when crystals are being utilized, their first benefit is they are in themselves antennas, so they can take energies that are being pushed through them. Like, let's say if we're firing electromagnetics through a quartz crystal, it's going to take that field of light and it's going to carve that field of light into the design of that quartz, right? So let me take a moment. Second, real quick. Let me hit this thing. Let me just take a moment and make sure everything's broadcasting. Okay, great. So everybody's good. It's always a bumpy start, right? It's like it never fails either. It's like I just expect it now. I used to melt down like back in my earlier days, like, it's not working. And then now I'm just like, man, just relax, man. It's eventually gonna work. Like, who are these people that would make you feel so scared about something not working? You know, lighten up, man. You're over here trying to assist people. It doesn't have to be perfect all the time because it is perfect already. So we're going to keep going. Crystals. We now know that the crystal antenna is governed by the geometrics of the crystal, and this is data already recorded. You can find the geometric pattern of any crystal. It's not like, this is a pseudoscience or anything like that, right? The next thing is that crystals, when they're under pressure, they then push out the chemicals, the geometrics, the essence, and the energy of their composition, right? And we call that piezoelectricity. It's the way those old lighters used to work. To get that spark, it would just hit the crystal, bam, and the crystal would spark, and then that lights the lighter, okay? So just to understand that, crystals are not only conductors and generators of power, they also are capable of shaping and molding different powers. Okay? So generally in the crystal world, and it doesn't always work this way, but the actual color of the crystal and its geometric pattern become the most important to determining what does that really work with. There are for sure some universal stones like citrine, selenite, I believe that is, the white stone that's a bit soft that you can also eat, right? So those are some universal stones that even don't need to be cleansed. But when you're getting deep into just to understand the spectrums, obviously like amethyst corresponds to this, right? And this is also the outer layer of your body. So just so understand, like, we're not just this up and down thing. That would be like we were just these good or bad things. That's not how it works. It's all in itself mirrors of itself. So anything that is on the top is also on the outside. So the electromagnetic field around the human body is actually really, really loving amethyst, right? Pink amethyst, purple amethyst. Man, amethyst was my first crystal, and generally there's more amethyst. Obviously, there's more amethyst in the world than maybe other crystals because everybody got a piece of amethyst, right? But each piece of amethyst connects into that amethyst vein, and I think pretty much because it's so abundant, it has a lot to do with this topological aspects of us. Right? Because those other crystals that you got to go deep in and mine, those are the more rare crystals. So then we got to look deep into the body to see, okay, yeah, this crystal right here is more tied into this. But to put some type of real measures around it, right? You're looking at the geometric shape, and then you're looking at the color, and if you're deep enough, you're looking at the chemical. And then that's giving you this works for this. So if I want to send something through that crystal, like far infrared or pulse electromagnetics, that's a way for me to send energy through it and push energy out. Or if I put pressure on that crystal, which is what orgone does, especially if you have good resin, when I put pressure on that crystal, as that orgone is drying, that's why they put the coils in the right place, right? So as that orgone or that resin is drying, it's tightening up around that crystal and it's squeezing that crystal. That's how orgone works. And then when it squeezes that crystal, at a certain point, that crystal gives off some electrical field. It starts pulsing, and it's supposed to pulse then into those coils that you create with copper, and then you should have it then exposed or like tapped or terminated. It's because it's still electricity. So that's why when I see, or it's electrical current in a certain way, a circuitry. So when I see certain technologies and the circuits aren't connected, like if they show like a board and they're saying, oh, this board, and I got a few technologies, these patterns and all this stuff on the board, right? And all these geometrics and maybe even sometimes cymatics or whatever, but none of the circuits are connected. And it's like, this can't work. There's a certain level of resonance, but it can't work to the potential of the field that you're looking for it to do because there's not any amplification. There's no driver. So there are things that when you're even looking at spiritual technology, as an electrician, you could be like, that wouldn't work anyway. I know that your belief would work better than that, basically. And that's how it would really be. Or you could craft something. If you craft something as a replica identically to us, the human temple, it will do miraculous things. There are things in this world that there are beings that had taken time, humans that have taken time to actually perfectly understand the pattern of life and then create something that to the best of their ability emulates those patterns. And those things will always heal. Those things will always do miraculous things and strange things. Okay? So as we keep going, now we understand why crystals work this way and also why you got even, of course, hot stones. Right? It's an extremely deep massage, right? Where it's literally removes your inflammation, your stress. The stones just suck all of it out, right? And then also the electrical systems coming off crystals, it's piercing deep into the marrow, right? So it's not just getting the bones, it's getting the marrow, but it's not the predominant use of getting into the marrow of the body. That would then be, I'm not going to skip. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. We're going to go right now to negative ions because now that we're seeing this field, let me see if this thing is working. Now that we're seeing this field around us and we're seeing how it works, we could then say that, okay, well, there's a few components that would be beneficial. One of them, that will be beneficial to work together. And when you're covering all these fields, you're covering like, okay, so now we have the power, right? Now we have the capacitor, okay? Now the environment, you see? So what this alchemist, scientist, whatever you want to call them, mad scientist maybe even knows how to do is, let's create a world then. That's how these technologies of our ancient ancestors work. They would just look at what's in the world. They say, okay, well, we got to give it breath. We got to give it life. And one of those forms of breath in life is what we call positive ions. Okay, so negative ions. So I'm gonna plug in this negative ion generator. I hope it doesn't blow everything out in here and also me. Now, what I'm going to be talking about today is actually technology that encompasses all of these different devices, because standalone, they themselves, they're missing their counterpart. It's like, yeah, it's great to create a negative ion generator, but if it's not paired with the proper carrier, then it's negative ions in the air, but they're in no way for my body to be able to assimilate. But because we know negative ions are good, there's people who've gotten away with just selling negative ion generators. Now, there's other major uses for negative ions, like removing particles from the air, okay? So like if you're gonna have like a device like this, I think Bissell may have one, or I think that's Bissell. So they have a air purifier, and what it basically is a huge positive ion ring. And what it does is it attracts the air into it, as I'm gonna show you here in a moment. Let me just grab a piece of paper. It pulls the air into it because ions actually have their own potential of being air. Watch this. So we have a piece of paper, and I'm trying to see if you can see this. Make sure this thing's cut on. Shit, I don't want to touch this thing. Hold on. Okay, it's not on. Give me 1 second. Yeah, this thing, it gives off a little jolt. Like I learned not to be just touching on this thing. Shoot, that thing may not be working. Again, that tech, so I told you, like some of this stuff is like, it works for like 2 days, 3 days, like even those grounding mats. And then all of a sudden you're like, yo, it's not coming on anymore. Or I don't feel that same thing, and it's because the application is off. So with this, I don't know what's happening here. Let me see if we blew a fuse, because there is a fuse here. Yeah, it's just, well, let me try a different outlet here. 1 second. See if we can get this thing to come on. Now, because normally you can hear it. Let me try another outlet here that I know works. Yeah, it looks like he may have given up. And I guess what I was looking to explain here, because it could be mimicked in this device. Yeah, this thing is not cutting on anymore. All good. That's what I'm saying. Like, and you'd be out of a few $100. You know, I don't think that was that much. But what I was going to show you is that what it'll do is it'll generate negative ions. And when you put a paper to the front of it, you'll see that paper blow. And when you put a paper to the back of it, you'll see it suck the paper. But there's no fans. And this is because the negative ion, just like you see within a waterfall, that negative ion is like, it's like a wind. It's like a breeze. It could create an atmosphere. The other reason why I wanted to show that is that there is the potential that we've already discovered in technology how to create negative ions. You see what I mean? So that's also inside of these technologies that we're going to talk about here in a moment. But so let's just get it very clear. So now we have this PEMF, which is like a stable. It's the floor. We always got to have the floor. We always got to have ground. No use in taking off on a Cricket launch pad. You're a rocket. We need to go straight up, not this way. If we going in the wrong direction in the trajectory, we're going to throw ourselves off course, okay? So staying on course is understanding the launch pad needs to be on point. The ground is the launch pad, right? So it's very basic. Pulse electromagnetic frequencies at 7.83 hertz emulates ground, okay? Now, we talked about also that if it's the bottom would also be in deep or in the outside. So this is ground for the body. So bam, we got that. So the thing is, we need a modulator. We need something that is going to speak a language that is going to allow us to be able to determine where are we going? What direction do I want to go in? Am I going down? Am I going up? Am I going in? Am I going out? And crystals are super instrumental for just guiding that. They do that. It's, oh, okay, I got this. That's why they're in all the electronics. I know exactly where this energy is going to go and how we're going to put it there, right? And so that's the modulator. and crystals act as the modulator. What are we predominantly working with? What is the first field that we're going to need to penetrate? As you'll see with these mats, a lot of them are amethyst mats because that's the outer shell of the body, the top of the head. We penetrate that first. That's going to be the entry point, and then we can get right into the rest of the body, or rest of the energetic field, right? So we have that. Then we have, okay, let's breathe life into it. Like it's great, it looks beautiful, but it's still somewhat inanimate. As far as the energetic field, let us bring a wind in. And so that wind is the negative ion, okay? And you would even be able to see the wind if that cheap ass device is still cutting on. So next, let there be light, okay? Now it's like, okay, it's like flipping switches in a rocket ship. It's like, okay, boom, boom, all right, we got ground, all right, we taking off. Now the next one is to turn on the lights, turn on the actual power systems themselves. And in this case, the power system that we're exploring is photons, okay? Because what photons have the ability to do is they have the ability to then take the magnetic fields and actually rearrange them. So what I like to see photons as is photons are the ones that still have this form, right? There's a formulation in a photon, and like hydrogen, that formulation is perfect. So everything that is coming through that photon field has to align into that perfection, if you may. And so that generally is the light component that is being used, and it's used to basically make sure that the magnetic fields, because the magnetic fields are flying everywhere, but they need some clothes, basically. They need structure, right? And then the final thing is infrared, okay? Because now the light is basically now bringing in that modulation and that structure. Now it's time to go deep. So the spectrum of light is determining how deep it is. And the way that you can understand this is there are times where you can go in a cave, right? Where it's pure darkness. And you shine a light and you'll see something green growing. And that green is chlorophyll. But technically, if something is not exposed to the light of the sun, it cannot generate chlorophyll. So why is this doing it? And it's because the sun has rays that penetrate through mountains, thick slabs of rock, stones, crystals, all the way to that little plant trying to get some light. Okay? That's deep knowledge right there, whether you see it or not. So that far, or the far infrared field, right? Far infrared, the sun generates lots of far infrared. What does that do? It gives us the penetration. Now that we have all these powers, wind, components, we need them to get down marrow deep. Okay? And so we need something that can carry that. So that's why fur, in this case, far infrared, is the carrier, which is another term that we use in electronics, which is, what's the carrier? All right, so let's get right to the technology because I'm not trying to be here all day. I definitely got lots of stuff to do. I just wanted to make sure that it's very clear to you about how this works. We're going to go ahead and jump over here to our system. Boop. That's what it's working. So give me one quick moment here. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right, so it turns out that our Oriental friends have their far lengths really beyond the Western culture when it comes to regeneration. The regeneration is a big thing over there. It's like everything's about regeneration, the arts of acupuncture, et cetera. And of course, they have really immersed themselves into the technologies and the functions of technologies and actually become the developers of most of our technologies. If you don't believe so, just look at the back. Most of the stuff is just distributed by the United States, but made somewhere in the Orient, right? So they have an extreme grasp of the technologies. However, it isn't still like, there's still the consciousness that has to come with it, right? Like just because you have access to certain things, you can have all the power in the world, but if you don't have guidance, you just explode on the launch pad. So this is about the actual process the graduation, if you may, of awareness of knowledge and power and how to utilize it to increase oneself in order to assist those that are around you, if you may, if you choose to do that, and also maintaining balance. So this is not about throwing fire from your hands like a Sith Lord. This is not about making all the girls fall in love with you. And this is not about getting rich. This is about what leads to even higher and greater things than could even be imagined. Okay? All those other things you can get. Just like Andrew was talking about when we were reading from the Gitas, it talks about, you know, when you go outside, let me get some water here. I think he had to drink some water at the same time. That's funny. When you go outside, you basically are just diverting energy from the inside. Some tea here. I'll say that again. When you're going outside, you're just diverting energy from the inside. And while we have to live like that in life, we do have to actually pay attention to things going on around us. We also must become really proficient at making sure that we understand how the things are governed within us. So today what we have is we have a device that is capable of emitting all of those fields that I just talked about. Now, for the record, I do not work for Ariata. They're actually in Korea. And I'm not even an affiliate. I don't even think they have affiliate links. I'm just coming here strictly on my experience because I did acquire another mat, and that mat did not function to the level of this other mat that's right here. And so I have come to understand that not all mats are created equal, but one of these absolutely works. Another one, the jury is still out on why we're not able to emulate the same experience. Okay? Now give me 1 second. Let me pull back this other camera since we do have another angle here. All right. I think I'll actually be mostly standing in the way, but that's all good. Go ahead and put this up here. So, boop. You see that one is the OBS. There we go. Let's put the OBS there. 1 second, everyone. Okay, we want that one, and then we want that one. Okay. Okay. Okay, so what you're looking at in the top right corner is you're looking at the control device, okay? Now, as I said before, there's a million of these mats. I remember when I was in the Institute that we had this mat, this other mat. This mat was like $40,000. It was wild. This guy that came and bought the mat for us to try out the mat was a part of one of these companies that actually sell this kind of equipment to practitioners, health practitioners. Let me move this camera to the other side 1 second. Or this screen to the other side. So they sell this stuff also to doctors' offices that are actually going trying to go more into a holistic field, or actually just trying to carry some type of device that that supports the holistic thing, right? So they could sell some more, right? And the mats that you'll see, and you even see these, because I know some folks are going to go do their own research, so you even see these mats. These mats are only PEMF mats, and they're selling them for like $8,000, $9,000, okay? Now, I have strictly PEMF technologies. I can't go get one right now, but there's now a PEMF headset. Headache. It's like the applications, like actually that'll be a future show, is the God helmet and basically applying magnetics to the brain and what has been discovered with that, right? Because I talked about last time we were in spiritual technology that we were going to come with this, and we did. So next time it's going to be the God helmet and electromagnetics or magnetics in the brain. And what is the conclusion of that? So one of these devices is a PEMF. It's like a PEMF headband, if you may. You put it on, shoots PEMF into the head. PEMF by itself, while it may be possible for it to help with what you would say is inflammation, just because magnetics are going to create more of the certain pole of the magnet, right? So in this case, this is the north pole of a magnet, right? This is a pulse electromagnetic field generator. That's all it does by itself. And that's why I was saying, like, there's a lot of technologies, they just do that one thing, but the one thing is not enough. And so when the person gets that technology and they're like, this is a soda, so this is not a cheap device. And then you get the technology and it's like, okay, man, I expected more. And that more was, did you create a body or did you just create one of the fields of the body? That's what they asked the engineer. Like, did you guys create this based on the principles and properties of how the body functions? Or did you just create one part of it and sell that because you saw that there was scientific evidence that that does something, right? So in this case, the best thing that a soda magnetic pulsar can do is relieve pressure from areas and decrease inflammation from areas. It is still a device that in its application, you know, you have to hold this here as you turn it on or hold it here and definitely don't put it by your heart. This is a very large magnet and, you know, it's going to pulse, but this is like, the application is, right? So this is why I was also saying that there's a lot of mats out there. So it's not just about going and get the other mat, because this mat, before I talk about, you know, this, the one that, you know, is functioning very well, which is today what got the topic, title or the award for human charger. Now, if you notice with this mat, and I'm showing this right up in the top, this little small mat that I have right here, and you're just looking up in the top right or top left. This little small mat is a Healthline Platinum Pro Plus, baby. Okay, this was supposed to be the Lamborghini of the thing. Now, obviously, this is a little small for the Lamborghini because I wasn't stupid enough to go and buy the large one first, because the large one is up there, and I was like, you know what? What I wanted most was this. The ability to set the frequencies myself. Because with this one, as you can see, this is legacy. This is still analog. They got analog dog over here and everything. What you see is what you get. You turn the button on, you turn on the temperature, that's it, right? So I was like, nah, somebody has to have taken this further. And I found out about Healthline, and I saw that they had where, you know, you could control the frequencies, you could control the intensity, and I was like, boom, that's it. Now, I had this one first, okay? And this one worked so well, I was like, this is it. We've, you know, whatever this is, but it wasn't my first time. My first time was with the doctor. He used to do, you know, we just clean the skin. Right, you'd be surprised how much stuff is in the skin. Kassar also has some good videos on cleaning the skin. So it was a thing to clean the skin, especially during cleanses. So I'm laying on the thing, getting the skin clean, and it was one of these mats. And I noticed that every time I would hit this mat, I would have like an out of body almost dream kind of thing, like that 3 a.m., 3:30 a.m. kind of feeling all the time when I get on the mat. And it took me a while to isolate that it was the mat. It would take you into such a state, you would just even wake up so refreshed. It was like, you just don't even think about the mat. And over time, I began to realize it's the mat. And then, you know, I kind of move on. Like what I do is I learn about things, and then, you know, I move on to something else that's probably going to be my next journey, right? Let me fix this microphone. So I went on to my next journey, and I didn't have any money to actually pay for the mat. Also, I think the mat that I was looking at was pretty expensive. And I just kind of forgot about the mats until like years and years later, I'm like thinking about everything that was in the institute that worked, which was only like 20% of what was there. And I remembered the mat. And I said, man, let me go and research these mats and see if I can get a mat. And I came across this mat first, which was great. And this one worked. Like, I'm telling you, anybody who has it, there's some people that are in tribe and sovereignty mentorship that have these, they know what it is. I think there's a smaller one that's probably this size. I don't have it, so I don't know if it would do the same thing as the bigger one, but I suppose so, because it's the same technology. I don't think the reason why this doesn't work is because of the size. I think that they have not done something inside of this mat in relation to ions or photons or PEMF itself that is not configured properly, because it gives nowhere near the essence. Now, how do you know? Because some people are like, well, shoot, that sounds like opinion. When you lay on this mat and you touch anything wooden, you will feel a thickness of reverberation coming off of your hands about this thick. Also, other people's skin. So if you rub your hand across another person's skin, you will feel a layer like this of buffer between your hand and their skin, right? And it won't be like electrical, it'll be electromagnetic. I don't feel that with this one at all. That's what rules it out, because whatever that is, that particular oscillation and vibration is the field that needs to be, now, because naturally, if you can feel that on, because you feel it on wood, you feel it on other humans, if you can feel that, that's actually coming off of you. That's not coming off of them. You're the one that's on the mat. So when you feel that, you know that this means that you have a field about 2 centimeters thick around your body, which is the electromagnetic field. And then when you're laying on this mat, as you'll notice, let's cut this baby on, you'll notice that it lights up with these photon emitters, right? So these emit the photons, right? And then they emit the far infrared light. And then inside of this mat, you have these different, well, wow, you probably can't see that, but hey, that's the best I could do for right now. Actually, let me see if I can get you in there even closer, because this is a super zoom. So let's let it super zoom itself. Go on and super zoom. You've been waiting to show off forever. This lens zoom all the way down the street. Let's keep zooming, baby. Zoom, zoom. Finally, you've come to use. And you're doing good. Look at you. Good technology. So see that? Now, also, you'll notice that there are these stitches. They may call me after this video, Mr. Boma. We have another mat for you. So you see these dots in this stitch? These dots are actually PEMF nodes. So this mat, let me see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So about 20, 40, 60, 80. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1,000. So it's got 1,000 nodes of pulse electromagnetic points on the mat, right? And then, of course, it's got the infrared. So it starts, if you turn it on, it starts getting warm if you turn it on to that. Now, I personally only put it on 1, if anything, because, man, you throw that thing on 5, you will be warm, or 2, 3, you will be warm for hours. And it's almost like a little uncomfortable. It's not my thing. Like, it basically, it's like the heat penetrating your body so deep, it gets, it's getting to the marrow, because you have a hard time cooling down after that. And it's just like, you just never cool down for a while. It's like hours. So I don't use that. Basically, I don't use that much infrared, because there's just no need, right? So we have the ion generator, we have the PEMF generator, we have the photon, we have the heat, okay? So and the crystals, obviously, because as you saw, man, like how many crystals is that? Like how much crystal is that? And so that, to me, that's real technology. That's when you get it right, or balanced, as I say. You have PEMF, ion, photon, infrared working together. You got the technical arm to be able to make the nodes in the proper place. Obviously, this mat has a cover over it, several covers actually, so you're not just laying right on top of everything. This mat has it too, but jury's still out. I would love to, since they do look alike, but they do not fit, to have this type of controller over here for this baby. Because then I would be cooking with grease because this works. Now, before we end today, because again, we weren't here to be here forever. We were here to be here for this moment in power and to transfer energy to each other that will indeed set the pace for the next level of infinity. I want to talk about some of the stuff that we're going to get into in our next episodes and kind of like what is the ultimate of this goal. Let me drink my tea here. And first, let me do this real quick. Let me jump over here. Check him out. Just give me one quick second. I'm going to see if the lab is hot right now. See, I was watching these YouTubers, man. These YouTubers be getting on, man. They be making a bunch of camera stuff. And I'll be like, man, I think it's just time for me to kind of let people understand what Xavier has been up to over here. But no, serious. It's just like, I feel like that if we create more things that surround the wondrous aspects of our existence, then, you know, we'll create a different world because there will be another reference point. You know, like if this channel or the content, I don't care when it happens, if it's 2 years, 3 years, 20 years, if it became as big as any of these YouTube channels, we can imagine, you know, where the world would get just because they would be aware of certain things. And, but fools rush in. So I'm not necessarily over here like it's gotta happen now. I'm patient, but I know that I have what it takes. So just give me a quick second because I want to talk about a little bit of what's in the workshop. And that's going to be like the next level of what we're going to be getting into, because we obviously want to bring some type of experimentation into play. So let me get a quick second here. Let me turn this on. There we are. Okay, there we are. Okay, so let's try that. Let's see how we're looking over there with that. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, so in this room, right, this is where some of the stuff happens that when I take these things through the experimentation process, because as you know, I've actually developed quite a few different spiritual technologies. Some of them are not available yet. Like the first one that we've been able to get into consumer grade that finally made it on the shelf was obviously Hydrolux. And that's a great place to start because it puts us in the beginning. And it's incredible to really start with the first element on the periodic table. As I always say, roll with the winners. And that teaches your body how to do what is necessary. It teaches the other elements inside of your body how to formulate themselves properly. It's like having a good friend. And this good friend's going to lead you into understanding more about who you truly are. That's what hydrogen does to the rest of the elements in your body. It's like the big brother, big sister for your body, right? So inside of this space, you obviously see that there's some fabrication components. So as you know, I've been working in industrial design and also fabrication. That means putting things together. How is it shaped? You know, what materials are we using? Are we dry casting it? You know, are we 3D printing it? Are we blast molding it? Like, what are we doing, right? So I have expertise in that field. As you know that, well, maybe you don't know, but I've actually worked in the field of robotics personally. It became a fascination of mine earlier in life. And we've actually been, at this stage, very instrumental at bringing in a STEM class for inner city youth. As you know, that was aired on Chess and Communities channel. And we've been working not only with DJI, but also with, again, inner city youth and colleges to actually bring in, somebody says sound is not loud enough. Okay, 1 second. Let me see if we can get that in. Okay, so I'm assuming the sound fixed itself. It just seems like this thing kind of backs away from my, actually, 1 second. Okay, somebody says sound is perfect. All right, so that camera gave out in there. It's like, okay, that's it. That's all we got over there in the room of mystery. But we will be forward back into that room. And I wanted to explain that, of course, robotics, injection molding, but also frequency experimentation and antenna work. And that's exactly what we're going to get to right here, just in our final segment. Let me get that camera on. Bam. And let me get my little tiny going on here. Little tiny. Okay. All right. Mic game together. A1 this thing. Okay, so we're looking good. Okay. All right, so final thoughts. So now that we have pretty much solved the, I need to clarify my energetic field, I need to fortify it, reinforce it, and then modulate it in order for it to be in harmony with all of the other fields, okay? And as that's happening, you're rapidly restoring, you're rapidly regenerating, right? And why are we doing this? We're doing this because this is the temple, and it's very important that your temple actually gets the restoration that is necessary for you to keep building. If you build too high and your temple is crumbling at the base, then the whole structure falls. And that means that you can't be there for your family, you can't be there for your friends, and you definitely can't be there for yourself. So the next build that we're going to have is actually about antenna research, okay? Because personally, and there's some other antennas, and I'm not going to bring them out now, but personally what I found is that to create a field, right? And to be able to project that field, like I could project a field 3 miles with just technology, let alone my body. And I can project a field that is sitting in a harmonic. So I'm not specifically projecting like one particular kind of frequency, I'm projecting a harmonic. And in this harmonic, what I'm doing is I'm pushing out all of the other disharmonic fields, right? So a disharmonic field could be like Wi-Fi. It wouldn't disrupt the Wi-Fi, but it would basically create a field so that when the Wi-Fi comes in, the Wi-Fi only has to, it basically has to formulate itself around the field that you created. It's like a wall that it has to go around the wall. It'll travel down those same lines. I have a device that I've been working on that basically takes that home router and turns it at night into a whole field of, you know, some people call that protection. Some people, it's a constant field that you won't really find electroid chaotic frequencies being able to penetrate, which often disrupt the dream. So, and it uses the antennas on the Wi-Fi router, because the antennas on your Wi-Fi router are really good quality antennas and can do a lot. It's just what they're being used for is to broadcast predominantly 2.4 gigahertz, right? But they have a frequency range all the way to 5 gigahertz. Most routers have 5G already built into them for those people who were concerned about 5G. And it's really that whole scale of frequencies is massive, and you already have the antennas to utilize that frequency. However, in other respects to this awareness, there are other tools that allow you to be able to modulate the field that is around you. And so that's what we're going to be talking about when we come in here next time, is we're going to get a bit into the actual field that is invisible, but even visible to the third eye, and what that field means and how to modulate that field. So let's just take a quick moment here. I know that we've had amazing time. We had a little bit going on with the audio. Obviously we want to continue to get better here. So I will be looking into better solutions, especially for something that's going to allow me to move around. And also I trust that, and let me just switch mics here real quick. Let's close this here real quick. 1 second, everyone.
Okay. All right, so that should be back to clear audio again. I trust that we'll be able to get something a little bit more effective next time that will give us some audio. But as we keep going through this process with each other, of course, things smooth themselves out as we go. Now, I do also want to let everybody else know that we've been doing everything that we can to bring solutions, because solutions exist before the problem. The sun exists before any of the issues. So it's important for us to always realize that you can get assistance with what you're experiencing in life, which you may call an ailment, which you may call a distortion, an imperfection. There is a solution for that. But oftentimes it takes us to just really do our work and to really be on point with ourselves about how we want to conduct our lives. So that's paying attention less to what's going on around us and all these different energies and stuff vying for your attention and lots of anxiety and all the things that are creating issues, and focusing more on just who you are and what you can do now with these hands, these fingers. These fingers can do a lot. These eyes, if you have them, they can do a lot. They're extreme gifts. And for us to remember that, I did an episode a long time ago, and I'll bring it up again because it's extremely instrumental. And this episode was just about how to tap into the best time that you've ever had in your life, and how to not forget to bring in that frequency and bring in that energy from time to time in order to gain a level of bearing in your experience, like to basically power you up. Your brain, or your subconscious, does not differentiate between bad and good. It does not have that capacity. It's like a child. It doesn't really get what you're talking about. All it gets is how you're expressing yourself. So if you're all angry, you're all upset, you're fighting with somebody, subconscious is just busy trying to create more of that. So when you have that reference point, though, because it's not just about saying, hey, you need to feel better, you need to feel good. You should know that already. How do you do it? What's a good hack? Know something that you have that was the best time. Everybody's had the best time of something. If you can't remember, sit down for a moment and just think, what is the best time that I ever had? And you'll notice as you start thinking about it, you'll start getting into that frequency, because remember, the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between whether you're experiencing it or not. It just knows that you're saying, hey, serve this up. So tapping into that frequency of yourself is going to give you a great level of awareness. So I want to say wholeness and balanced vibration. I got to get up into something else right now and keep it going with life. And I'm looking forward to the next time that we join in together. I definitely have some fresh tunes for you on our way up out here. But I also want to say that we're working on, again, some other healing components. We have, for sure, Eniology Yoga coming. Sovereignty Mentorship is still live. We're actually bringing in a brand new university. We're going to do all access, so it's getting live over here. If you don't know about us, then now you know. And if your friends don't, then let them know. I'm Seven Bomar. Much love to everyone out there. Wholeness.
This is the most complicated one I've ever seen, by far. See, this one can write. Magicians used machines like this when I was a boy. Some walked, some danced, some sang, but the secret was always in the clockwork.
Can we fix him?
Of course we can fix it. We're clockmakers, aren't we?
You shouldn't give up in frustration. Your body has the DNA for it.
Much love, tribe.